and share my screen. And to welcome everybody to another Wednesday and another public weekly roundtable. What are we talking about today? And I can see that there's somebody on today's call that we've just had a conversation. So great to see you, Mazin, on here. And hopefully there'll be a little bit of this now that'll be very, very familiar to you, which is absolutely fantastic. So today's agenda in the whole concept of humanizing transformation is about the power of unlearning. And the power of unlearning is something so incredibly important to us. It is so powerful, and it allows us to connect with humans. It allows us to accelerate transformation and to achieve agile at scale. So what do we mean, and how can we do it? Well, I think one of the first things that is a super quote and something important for us all to understand is this: the concept and definition of literacy in the world that we live in today is different. And Alvin Toffler, who works a lot in this world of learn, unlearn, and relearn that I'm going to be introducing you today, talks about this sense of literacy as a definition is something so much broader than we first realize. So this quote is great. And you all know that my weekly moments always start with a quote, right? So the illiterate of the 21st century is not about those who cannot read and write, but it is about those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And there's something really important here, because when we think about the digital age that we live in, a lot of the time in the design and the delivery of digital transformation projects and programs, we often talk about digital literacy and data literacy, and they're great. But when I question our customers on what they mean and what they are doing to build digital literacy and data literacy, they focus only on knowledge and skill. They focus only on the acquisition, and that's a really important word, the acquisition of knowledge and the acquisition of skill. So they're building and giving newness. But what they're not doing is they're not recognizing that there are two other elements to the idea of literacy in a world that we're living in today, and that is the unlearn and the relearn. So what do I mean? Well, this is the learn, unlearn, and relearn cycle. Now, as I've just said, learning for all of us is something that we can really easily kind of grab hold of and engage with, isn't it? We all know what it means to learn something. We hear something from someone and we learn something new. We read something, we watch something, we listen to something, we go on a course. You know, today we might be learning something. It's the acquiring, the addition of knowledge and or skill on top of what we already have. So it's acquisition, it's acquiring, and it's building and building and building. However, the brain and who we are as human beings, our brain, our cognition is not infinite, it's finite. So as we're building and learning, acquiring skill and acquiring knowledge, what we're doing is we're just adding on top and on top. What we need to be doing as well is we need to be letting go. We need to be questioning our mental model in terms of our current mental model and letting go of what no longer serves us. And that's the unlearn stage in order for us to relearn. And a very, very simple example of this that I give everybody is that if you think about driving a car in the UK, now you drive a car in the UK on the left-hand side of the road. But if I was to go on holiday to Europe, they drive in France, as an example, they drive on the right-hand side of the road. Now, I've been driving since the age of 17 for many, many years. So how I drive here in the UK is automatic pilot. It is the acquisition of a new skill, and I have that knowledge, and it's embedded within me. So it's automatic pilot. But all of a sudden, when I go to France, I'm not just relearning how to drive on the right-hand side of the road. I am unlearning driving on the left to driving on the right. I have to keep reminding myself, don't drive on the left, don't drive on the left, you've got to drive on the right. that reminder, that constant reminder of not go left, keep to the right, is the unlearning element. And that has got so much power for us if we want to humanize transformation and help people to come on the journey of change and transformation with us. And we can think about it like a software update. So those of us that are in the world of transformation projects, those of us that might be have a history in technology or technology change, we can think about learn, unlearn and relearn just like a software update. And it's just a sense of, software is constantly updating. And the features and functions of the old update are no longer needed. We let go of them, but we let go of them in order for us to relearn the new features and functions of the update. And a really great example of this is just thinking about Microsoft, thinking about the evolution and the history and the maturity of Windows is absolutely fascinating. If you think about back in the early 2000s, when Windows version 3.1, that was a big, massive pivot point. Now, Windows had been around for many, many years prior to that, but just thinking about version 3.1, where all of a sudden this sense of modernity is a really, really big shift. Things were in color, we were able to drag and drop, we weren't necessarily having to really take on process steps because things were becoming automated for us, that we were able to do more click and use. And then, of course, in 2015, we have Windows 10 release. Obviously, there's versions in between. And the Windows 10 release was really the start of the real scale of the app revolution for Windows. And we're thinking about Office 365. It's been around for a long time. But if you think about it, how we have individually ourselves naturally gone through the learn, unlearn and relearn model based on our use of Windows, we do it. So a very, very, very important element is to get people to recognize that we all do this naturally as human beings. As human beings, we are not just always in learn mode. We are not just always in acquisition of and skill. We're not just adding. What we're doing is we are also releasing and updating. We're releasing, updating, learning, releasing, updating, and learning. And if we can start to think about this more consciously, help others to think about this more consciously, and to use this in the design and delivery of our digital transformations, oh boy, number one, we humanize. Number two, we accelerate success. And number three, we're able to achieve agility at scale, because that's what this is about. This is the human version of agility. You're thinking about agile methodology, you're thinking about iterative design, you're thinking about incremental design. Both those words apply to the learn, unlearn, and relearn human mental model for agile. So it's the application of that methodology to the human. Another example of just thinking about, how we naturally do this is thinking about your own use of email. So whatever technology you use for email today, now, I will ask you a question. What were you doing and what were you using 10 years ago? And I bet you bottom dollar that you were using it in a slightly different way, slightly different layout. Maybe you might have been using Hotmail 10 years ago and you might be using Outlook today. But the key thing is this, that you might think that nothing's changed, but every time Gmail and Outlook give an update, the layout changes slightly, or the way that they're automating it and they're serving up different features and functions, we are letting go, unlearning what was yesterday, and we are starting to relearn the new operating system, the new features and functions. So we're doing it every single day. But the key is that when we are applying the learn, unlearn, and relearn model, when we're applying that to projects and programs, whether it's a project of transformation change, or whether it's a program that might even be organizational development or learning and development, we have to address that the fact that the majority of people we are working with, in particular leaders, in particular leaders, the majority of people that we're working with have been conditioned in the old mental model. They've been conditioned in the mental model of the more knowledge I have, the more power I have, the more confidence I have. The more knowledge I have, the more skilled I am, the more capable I am. The more knowledge and skill I have, the more likely is that I will succeed. And there's this conformity of being served knowledge and acquiring skill. And that is all that we've needed. And the conversation that we've just come out of, and Mazine, I know that you're on this call as well, the conversation that we had earlier on today was just talking about this sense of how we just are fed something, and as soon as we are told something, we receive it and we believe it and we don't question it. We receive it, we take it for granted that it is what it is, and then we get on with it. And that is the old corporate system. That's how governments and organizations have been built structurally since the 70s, and that's what's called the Michael Porter approach. And the Michael Porter approach is put all of your effort and resources into areas of expertise, skill and knowledge, and you will, as a result, be more profitable or successful as an output. But now we're moving into a new era, and we're moving into an era of the access ecosystem, the networked ecosystem, the world of connectivity and collaboration. And, you know, our walls are not real anymore. Our walls have got tiny dots in them where we're able to ourselves move outside seamlessly, and also people from the community and outside are able to move in. So it's really, really important for us to understand that there is a mental model that everybody has been encouraged to believe and adopt, which is all about learn and acquisition. And it builds conformity, and it builds rules, and it builds silos, and it builds bias. And in many cases, it builds ego. And what we need to do now in our networked ecosystems to humanize transformation is to encourage and enable and support people to also not just question their current mental model, but to really adopt and to experiment the unlearn and the relearn, not just the learn element. So it is all about mental modeling and mindset, because our thinking, the values, our purpose, our belief system, our rituals, this is everything that drives how we do things. This is everything that drives what we do, the words that we use, the language, who we say it to, how we design, how we trigger ourselves into one way or another. It's all about our mental model. So what we want to do is we want to build on these three elements. And I want to talk about the top two today. And what I have done is I have given us quite an extensive bonus. So I mentioned 5 ways that we can help harness the unlearning element to humanize transformation for today, but I'm actually going to give us a lot more as well. So I'm going to talk about 1 and 2 today. How do we build awareness and acceptance that the old model, it's not fit for purpose? But also, how do we create that new mental model? So I'm going to do a little bit of both today, so a lot more than 5. But let's just talk about the first 5. How do we build awareness and acceptance that that old mental model, the way that we have all been, you know, led through the education system, led through the adult learning and development system, how we operate within our corporate systems at the moment, how all of that no longer fits and we're moving out of it. So the first thing, which is so incredibly important, and those of you that have been on previous weekly moments will know that this underpins everything. It's helping people to lean into it by being a role model ourselves. It doesn't matter how technical or how pure the transformation that you're working on, the project that you're working on is. I can guarantee that there are elements and behaviours that you are able to role model as a participant in order to get others to experience, trust, believe, and follow. So you as a participating role model in your change and transformation is arguably one of the most powerful ways of helping people to build awareness and acceptance that their way of thinking and behaving, their old role mental model, might not necessarily be that relevant for what's going on around them now. And the second one, which is what I've just shared with you with my nice little kind of, my Microsoft journey, evolution and maturity over time, is just get people to recognize that this isn't, we don't have to learn this model. It's natural. Human beings have been doing it for thousands and thousands of years. That's why we are here today, able to do what we're doing on this Zoom call, able to have this conversation, because as human beings, we have been learning and unlearning and relearning naturally for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. So we want to get people to understand where they might be doing this in their personal lives, or even just without thinking, perhaps in their professional life. So get people to recognize that they're already doing it. I had an injury to my hand at the beginning of this week, and I am left-handed, and the injury is to my left hand. So what I am having to do at the moment is I can't hold anything. So therefore I can't brush my teeth with my left hand. So I am having to unlearn brushing my teeth with my left hand, which is constantly reminding myself not to pick up my toothbrush with my left hand, constantly reminding myself to brush with my right hand. That's the letting go. That's the unlearning. And then of course the relearning is brushing my teeth with my right hand. Now I know that by next week it's going to be a lot easier than it is at the moment, because even this morning my natural automatic pilot went to grab my toothbrush with my left hand, and of course I couldn't do it. I had to remind myself, let go, release, unlearn, and then pick it up with my right hand and have a go and relearn. So really, really important for us to just see and look around us and recognize that we are doing this in ways, that we just don't realize all the time. Number 3, help people build transparency around the fact that a learning mindset, and a lot of people talk about the learning mindset these days, don't they? Lots of people talk about the learning mindset these days. What we want to do is we want to make sure that the idea of a learning mindset is not just about addition. It's not about addition. It's about subtraction and multiplication. Yeah, it's so much more. A learning mindset has got curiosity. A learning mindset has got diversity. I'm going to tell you about that in a moment. So a learning mindset is not just acquiring knowledge and skill. It's not just about addition. It's broader than that. Really important for us to ensure that people understand that, because when you say learn to people, the default, and I wonder what it is for yourselves, just a little bit of a thought here, prior to me sharing the learn and relearn model, when you think or thought about learning, what did come to your mind? Was it knowledge? Was it skill? Was it the addition of something new? It's really interesting. It's so much more than that. Number 4, and I love this one. Number 4 is what I call decrease our autopilot mode, so that we are constantly encouraging and supporting people to think twice. And what I mean by this is breaking the habit of just receiving the rules from the system, receiving our direction, receiving information, and just taking it as real. And when you think about it, a lot of people talk about the information that we receive, especially through social media. There are so many different channels of information being shared with us today. And what is interesting about that is, there's things like deep fake news, all of that kind of stuff. Now, if we just receive and assume that everything that we receive is true, then that adds vulnerability to data protection, cybersecurity, and our ability to humanize transformation and to accelerate success. Because we want to ensure that autopilot is only used to serve us well, not to increase our vulnerability. So wherever possible, let's try at role modeling it ourselves, but let's try and get people to think twice. So everything I do, I'm receiving that. Do I believe that? Is that aligned with the strategy? So there's a bit of critical thinking, but think twice. Don't think once, think twice. Very, very, very profound technique, that decreasing the autopilot mode. And the final one for building awareness and acceptance, and there are many more, but these are 5 that we use. And those of you that are aware of our framework, the Dilyn Way framework, know that these 5 are integral to everything that we do and all of our tools and all of our development. Encourage and question seemingly clear circumstances more deeply. Now, what this means is, for ourselves, and also when we're working in teams, and maybe when we're working with a leadership group, is get the people and ourselves to think, what is normal? What is normal to me? What is familiar to me? What am I doing that's pattern? What am I doing that's thematic? And it might be that, you know, every day you're doing a 10-minute daily stand-up. Well, that's an agile technique. That's a behavior that you do in an agile project. Okay, well, that's fine. But are you questioning it? Are you thinking twice about it? Is it working? Is it the right thing to do? Is it the right channel? Is it the right agenda? Is everybody getting the right time? Is there a smarter, better way of doing it? So it's just looking at everything that is a pattern, everything that is repeated or consistent, meetings, conversations, our own behaviors in terms of when we do our emailing. We might do it every morning at the beginning of the day. Now that's cognitively when we're at our best. We should be doing our most complex work in the morning, whereas emailing might be better served midway through or just before lunch. So it's just really starting to recognize and map our own patterns, map our own themes of consistent and repeated things, the stuff that we just do as a matter of just, you know, just doing it because it's a pattern, and getting us to really recognize it. And once we can do, then what we can do is we can think twice about it. So these 5 techniques, number 1, be the role model. Where can we start to take some of the features and functions of what we're trying to encourage in others in terms of difference and place it within our own behavior for serving this project and this program better? There's always behavior that we can adopt and role model to help others to really touch, feel, experience, trust, believe, follow. Encouraging people and understanding that it's something that we all do anyway. This isn't new. All we're doing is we're introducing you to the consciousness of something that you're doing unconsciously, making sure that the learning mindset is really understood way beyond just acquisition and addition. To think twice on autopilot, right? Decrease our autopilot when we're being told what to do, when we're being given process steps, when we're being given rules. Decrease that autopilot and encourage, think not once, but think twice. And get people to map the patterns and the themes of the stuff that they do, the systems that they use when they use it, the behaviors that we have in our day and when we execute them, our meetings, what's repeated, what's consistent, and then we can question. This builds awareness. And when we're doing all 5 of these things in sync with each other, at the same time, what we're able to do is we're able to have conversations about mental modeling, and people are starting to accept that their mental model might not be serving them as best as it could now or in the future with the ambition or the moonshot of the transformation. It's really powerful. But once we have got people to recognize that the mental model no longer serves them, so they're acceptant of that release, they're recognizing that they can let go of some things, then, or even archive, Mazzy, what do? Then there's something about relearning. So how are we able to start to give people the best chance of engaging in creating a better future for themselves, engaging in the transformation that we are leading, or we are project managing or program managing, whatever. But it's about people being the creators. We do not create the new mental model. Every individual creates their own new mental model that is aligned with the future. That's very important for us to recognize. So what are some of the things that we can do? Well, I've got 8 here. Now, you know, this is eight bonuses for today, because I wanted to share the 5 things that I've just shared with you. But I also want to do this. So we've got 8 bonuses today, not just 1. So how do we encourage and foster an environment where people themselves are able to create their new mental model that is aligned with the future, the ambition, the moonshot of the transformation? So this is the relearn, right? Remembering, on the proviso that we have got those 5 unlearning things happening. So the first one is learn from beyond, and that is so easy. We can all do this. We can all do this. It is just engaging in discussion and understanding how other people think, and behave. So again, remember, this is not just adding, this is discussion. This is not just knowing, this is understanding. That's why there's conversation going on here. So it's about immersing ourselves, going and shadowing maybe an entrepreneur, maybe a tech startup, maybe a young CEO, or maybe somebody in a different sector to us that has got a different, you know, a different target operating model. It's about discussion and understanding, not just about the acquisition. So this is learn from beyond. The next one is creating triggers. And this is very important for us all, because when we create triggers, we are helping people to stay in a growth mindset, because a lot of the time triggers can put us into a fixed mindset. We want to encourage, by creating positive psychology triggers, we want to encourage people to stay in a growth mindset, because when people are in a growth mindset, they will be engaging in creativity, in empathy. We are more likely to innovate. They are more likely to come on the journey with us. Oh my goodness, there's so much about these triggers. So what do I mean by a trigger? Well, a trigger can be something as simple as the language we're using. So we might want to just encourage yes and instead of yes but. That's something as simple as that. I say, can I +1 that? So when I want to maybe, you know, challenge or expand on somebody's thought or somebody's idea, I always say, can I +1 that? Can I +1 that? And that really, really helps. So yes and, yes but, can I +1? There are so many hundreds of words that we can use, that we can, you know, really bring in to encourage the new mental model and to trigger people into growth mindset. I've actually got customer, not consumer there. And as I mentioned earlier, we used to work a lot in the private sector. We don't so much now. We work with you know, big regulated sectors and education and government. But when we were working in private sector, there was very much this consumer mindset, and organizations were built, products and service was designed around this consumer model. And the consumer model is 2 things. It's number 1, it's very transactional. Right? So a consumer consumes our product and service. That's transactional. So the word consumer engages you in that mental model of transactional engagement. And the second thing about consumer is that it also triggers I serve many. So we, the brand, the organization, with our product and service, go out to many, one to many. Whereas the world that we're living in is many to many. So thinking about social media isn't a channel for us to send communication from ourselves one to many. No, it's where we enter into discussions and conversations many to many. So what we do is encourage people to adopt a different word, which is customer. Now you might go, well, it's just customer, Mel, so what's so different? Well, a customer allows us to add value. A customer allows us to talk about the design of the relationship that we have with that user. That, you know, using the word customer allows people to engage with a mental model of loyalty, of relationship, of conversation, etc., etc., etc. So just some very simple examples of the power of word as a trigger to help people to engage in a growth mindset and to start to be able to create new mental model for themselves, which is a very, very good segue into the third point, which is conversation with self and with others. Conversation is how we learn, which is the quote here that you can see from Ed Haas. You can read something. Great. So you might know it, you might, yeah, it makes sense. But when you socialize that out, when you share it with someone, when you teach it to somebody, when you guide somebody as a mentor on something, when you coach it to help people to discover whether it's true or relevant for them, then what you're doing is you are really accelerating that learning. And conversation is incredibly powerful. Where are the conversations? How many conversations are you having with yourself, but also encouraging and fostering in others? Number 4 is an interesting one. And I laugh and I smile about this one because it is, I used to do this, right? I used to, in my own practice of leading transformation projects and programs, yes, absolutely. At the beginning of it, we would identify problems, or we would identify the opportunity, and then we would go from there into strategy, into vision, and then we would create strategies, the how to deliver on that vision. And we'd never go back to the problem. And that's key. What we need to be doing is, with learn, unlearn, and relearn, is to recognize that as we are letting go, as well as understanding and relearning, we should be constantly revisiting either the opportunity or the problem. So it's not just iterating the how, the delivery, the deployment. We ought to be iterating the source, the problem or the opportunity. Not the ambition and the moonshot, but just redefining that problem and that opportunity. Gosh, how the world has changed for me in that area. And then number 5, very closely linked to point number 7. And this really is about encouraging diversity. And what we mean by that is really getting people out of their silos, right? So being able to, you know, help people to look outside of their problem area. So, you know, what might be a problem for us? Is it an opportunity in another sector? That's an interesting question to ask the next time you go into a design meeting. Is the problem that we've got in our sector for us that's unique, is that actually an opportunity that another sector or another organization or another geography has got? Let's have a look. Being open to look outside the problem area. Be open to diverse viewpoints, collaborate with other disciplines. I always say, bring other disciplines in, even within your environment. If you're working on a technical project or program, bring learning and development in, bring communications in, bring finance in. It doesn't matter, but bring diversity from within your system, but also bring diversity from outside of your system as well. So thinking about, can you bring younger generations from a local university, get them to come into some of your meetings? You'll be introducing different mental models, right? And this is all about the creation of new mental model. So enabling that diversity is really, really important. And why that is point 7. If we are surrounded by people that think like us, that will absolutely block and hinder unlearning. Because once we've got people echoing what our belief now, all it's doing is it's helping us and encouraging us to hang on to it. So letting go becomes harder and harder and harder. So we really want to make sure that we've got that diversity so that it's easier and easier for us to let go. Super important. And finally, is help people focus on that new reality by keep reminding them of what they need to unlearn. Like I said earlier on with my hand, I mentally say, I'm letting go of the left. I don't need my left hand. I'm using my right hand. So in order for me to relearn to brush my teeth with my right, I want to keep reminding myself that I'm unlearning. I'm unlearning the left-handedness. Now, just a quick point to add, which is this. I said earlier on that unlearning is not about forgetting. And it's not. It's about releasing and letting go. When we have created a neural pathway, it is there forever. Habits do not get deleted. It's just that stronger habits take their place, but they are there forever. So once you have created a neural pathway, it's there. And there's a beautiful example of, and if you go onto the internet browser and just put in the URL, unlearning to ride a bike, you will get numerous videos of the same gentleman who did an extensive exercise over 8 months of learning how to ride a completely different bicycle to the one that he and all of us have probably learned to ride since we were, knee high to a grasshopper. And it took him 8 months to learn how to ride that new bicycle. And the most important thing for him was to keep reminding himself of how not to ride in the old way in order for him to relearn the new way. But this is the interesting thing that I wanted to share with you. At the end of the 8 months, what he then did was he went to Amsterdam, the city of bikes and bicycles. He went to Amsterdam and he got on to an old-fashioned bike. And at first, he couldn't ride that old bike. But it didn't take him 8 months. It took him only a matter of moments, less than minutes. It took him moments because the neural pathway is already there. So it's really important for us to recognize that at any given moment, we can bring back up some of our old behaviors and to redefine them for a new world as well. So really important. So what I've done is I've just exposed us all to this wonderful world of not just learn, which is about addition and skill, not just literacy, which is about skill and knowledge, but I've introduced us to the unlearn and the relearn, and they are the secret sauce to humanizing transformation, to working with people, encouraging and engaging them to really create a new mental model. But in order to do that, they've got to accept that the old mental model no longer works. We cannot, in any human transformation, in any systems transformation, introduce a new mental model without getting people to explore and become aware and accept that their old mental model no longer serves them and is no longer relevant. We've got to understand those 2 points. So I've introduced us all to the learn, unlearn and relearn model today, which I just love. It's so incredibly fascinating. And it's an integral part, of course, to the Dilyn Way framework, which is the human systems framework for transformation. And that is part of our Practitioner Leadership Academy. What that means is we train and certify practitioners that lead and participate in transformation all over the world. We have our certification program in the Dilyn Way framework, and we also have our leadership programs that we work with organizations to deliver internally, but also at a public level. And we've got our Practitioner Leadership Academy, which is open for all to join. Yes, of course, there is a commercial cost to that because it's a certificate and it is a 7-month program. But what that does is it gives you all of the tools. It gives you a personal journey of transformation so that you can go out and not just deliver transformation projects and programs, but you can deliver humanized transformation projects and programs, which gives you accelerated success and agile at scale. And what I do there is I offer on every weekly moment, as those of you that join me often, is always a strategy session. So there is a 1-hour strategy session that is available to all of you at no cost. And I do that usually on Thursday afternoons, but I think I've opened up my diary now because there's quite a few coming in. And in that strategy session, with no obligation whatsoever, I give you a free mentor coaching session on your now, on your future, and how you might be able to map that. Because when you know where you're going, and when you have got an insight into your own potential and possibility in the future, then that means that you're more likely to engage others in that as well. So the Dilyn Way framework gives you not just the process, but it also gives you a program for that. I've popped the link in the chat area, so if you'd like to book one of those strategy sessions with me, then I would love you to do that, and that link is in there for you. But before we finish today's session, I always do share banana skins. And what I mean by a banana skin is, given the topic of today's leadership roundtable, are there any things that we can slip up on? There are always things that we can slip up on. So these are the little things that I want to make sure that you're reminded of so that you don't slip up. So the first one is this: if we spend too little time on that first element, that awareness and acceptance of the old mental model not being relevant, if we don't spend enough time there, we can slip up. So it's really important for us to spend time there. And I can guarantee that every minute, hour, day, week, month spent on that awareness and that acceptance piece definitely accelerates, because once you got to the tipping point, it's human transformation is all about a J-curve. And the other thing that is so easy for you to slip up on is just not remembering the power in yourself as a role model. You know, a lot of the time, and I've been engaged in really complex transformation portfolios. And I've thought to myself, gosh, this is so complex and it's so technical. There's no way, my role modeling is not going to help others engage. It's not going to build awareness in others to actually come on the journey with me. And I've been wrong every single time. The power of who we are in our own mental model and how that manifests in our behavior and our actions always increases our success factor every single time. So there we go. Today's session is all about that power of unlearning. It is not about what is knowledge and skill. It is clearly about the how-to ability. That's how we maintain our relevancy. And, you know, absolutely, it's not about seeking knowledge. It is about seeking understanding. You might know something, but do you really understand it? And I think most important for us is when we're thinking about time, when we're thinking about attention management, it is about unlearning. If we spend more of our time on understanding and making the unlearning element more visible, wow, how we can accelerate our own success as well as the success of those around us. And there we go. So that's the end of today's session. Haifa, I noticed that you sent a little message there. Will today's session be recorded and sent out? Absolutely. Yes, we will be. It is recording, and that recording will go out to everybody, if not today, certainly tomorrow. And just would like to open out any questions if anybody's got any thoughts, or if anybody would like to, ask me a question, then please do feel free to stay on board. What I'm going to do is I am going to stop the recording now.